I was in a conversation with one of my friends at youth group a little while ago, and he brought up this comment in our conversation. The Bible doesn't really mention anything about dating. And you know what? He's correct. You see, nowhere in the Bible, in the scriptures, does God put the word dating, because dating was a coined term back in the 1800s, and this would begin the term and begin to define what dating really means. It means a young man and a young woman would entertain each other under, hear this, a chaperone. What is a chaperone? A responsible parent or guardian. However, in today's society of dating, there's no such thing as boundaries. There is no setting up of rules, no respecting of parents. So yes, the Bible doesn't say the word dating anywhere in the scriptures, but what does it say? It does talk about love, friendships, relationships, sex, marriage. So if all these things are within the Bible, then why can't we learn to date biblically? Coming up. Happy Valentine's Day. My name is Clark from Gospel House Ministries, and I'm so excited to bring you guys a message where we're going to learn how to date biblically. Today, we are going to be in a very interesting passage of the Bible. We're going to look at Judges chapter 14. This is the chapter where Samson is about to have his first wife. I want you guys to keep that key word I just said right there. About. Because we know Samson, he is not the greatest example. We're not going to see how to date. We're looking at the warnings and we're looking at the things to avoid that can make us wiser when we jump into a relationship. Wherever your life is, I hope this will be an encouragement to you. So this is for anybody who wants to be or is in an intimate relationship with their spouse or future spouse or girlfriend. So without any further ado, let's jump in to Judges chapter 14. As we look at Judges chapter 14, there's something that I want us to look at, the context. The context of the book of Judges is the judges were people that God set up to judge the nation of Israel. They would punish those that were against God, that did wicked acts against God, and they would punish them and most likely kill them. And as we know, Samson is actually one of those judges. And although we see how Samson is rebellious, is wicked, he will do what the Lord planned to do, which was to wipe out the Philistines. Now, there are three things I want you to keep in mind. Vows. Now, why are these important? Because Samson is a Nazarene. As a Nazarite, you would take these three vows. Number one, you couldn't cut your hair. Do you know why a lot of people draw Jesus with long hair? Because he was from Nazareth. He was born in Bethlehem, but he grew up in Nazareth. Who knows? It's just a little taste, right? Why did Jesus have long hair? Because he grew up in Nazareth. And a Nazarite could not cut their own hair. It was against their vow. Number two is that they could not drink wine. They could not drink wine. They could not even go near grapes for that matter, because what is wine? It's fermented grapes. The third one is to not go near a dead body. All right, here we are. Judges chapter 14, starting in verses 1 through 3. Samson went down to Timnath, and at Timnath he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. He came up and told his father and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnath. Get her for me as my wife. But his father and mother said to him, Is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all of our people that you must go and take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she is right in my eyes. So I want us to see point number one, which is purpose of progress. You see, we see that he went. In verse 1, it says, Samson went down to Timnath. What is Timnath? It is literally a Philistine camp. So let me give you guys a little bit more context of what's happening here. The nation of Israel at this time is being held captive by the Philistines. Basically, this was the early version of Rome, treating them as slaves, as dogs, as animals. The Philistines would be very cruel to the Israelites. So Samson, what are you doing? Why are you going near a Philistine camp? But let's turn it back onto us. Why is he walking into a city where he knows he's going to be tempted? Why do we put ourselves in situations where doing the right thing is difficult? I've heard someone say, who is wiser than me, we don't need to experience it to know it's bad. And now we see that he saw, still in verse 1. So Samson went down to Timnath. He's already in the Philistine camp, going to be tempted. Continuing off that, and at Timnath he saw, let me say again, and at Timnath he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. This must have been a girl that made Samson's head turn. Now look at me, fellas. It is okay for you to think a girl is beautiful, pretty, almost looks like an angel, but beauty shouldn't be the only thing we desire. Consider Proverbs 31, verse 30. So now we see that he goes into a Philistine camp. He's tempted. And we know that the temptation is fulfilled as soon as he sees that girl. But I want us to see that he craved. Look at verses 2 and 3. And then he came up and told his father and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnath. Hear this phrasing. Now get her for me. Get this girl, get this woman for me as my wife. And literally continues in verse 3, and the parents like, why are you wanting this girl? Why can't you pick someone from our clan, someone from our tribe? So notice that he doesn't ask his parents politely in any way, shape, or form. He just goes straight to the problem. He's treating his parents as his servants. He's treating them like they're nothing to him. There are 4 things I want to ask you guys. Do we rush into relationships? Are you pure inside and outside of dating? Do you talk to your parents harshly? Do you interact with them harshly? And number 4, is this about you or others and God? We see how in verse 4, let me just read it. His father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord, for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines ruled over Israel. That's what we just talked about. The parents don't know what's going on. Their son is being rebellious. They're like, what do we do? But what we see in this story is this was all part of God's plan. God's plan is being fulfilled that Samson, would conquer the Philistines. He would wipe them out. Your plan equals a sandcastle during a hurricane. But God's plan, when we trust God's plan, that is a cement house within a storm. What do you choose? Which point number 2 was purpose of a plan. I forgot to mention that. Point number 2 was purpose of a plan. And now we get into point number 3, which is purpose of pride. And since this is a long passage, I'm just going to paraphrase most of what's going on. So basically what Samson does is that as his parents get ready for the wedding, they're going to get ready for this girl to be Samson's wife. Samson is walking in a vineyard and a lion comes up to him. And thankfully, because of his strength, he ripped that lion in 2. And basically we see that his vows are broken. Because as he's in a vineyard, yes, the lion is trying to take out Samson. He takes it out with his incredible strength. Then later in the day, he comes back to the same location, looks at the lion. There is a bee's hive that is making honey in the carcass. And what does Samson do? He goes over to that carcass, grabs the honey, and he brings it to his parents, and he doesn't even tell them where it came from. He just broke 2 of his vows. And we see that pride can blind us from obedience to just gratifying in our own desires. He probably knew the vows he should have kept, but he did it anyway because his own desires. Therefore, let me ask you a question. Will you choose your own desires or God's desires? It's just like the plan. Do you choose God's plan and God's desires, or do you choose your own plan and your own desires? And now we see riddled guests. So what Samson does is he's at the party. Actually, he's drunk. He has wine. And he is with these people that are gathered around for the feast. And he asks them, he gives them a riddle. He says this in verse 14. And he said to them, out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. And basically what begins to happen is Samson gets so cocky that he thinks that these guys are never going to figure it out. He even bets on it. He says, if you guys can figure it out, I'll give you 30 pairs of new clothing. And what they did, we're going to see after this point. Here's another thing that pride does. Not only does it make you want to satisfy and gratify your own desires, it also stops you and hinders you from being truthful and honest and humble. Pride says, look how good I am. Don't let pride block you from being truthful, honest, and humble. And now we see enticed emotion. What happens? Let's look at that real quick, shall we? Verse 15. On the fourth day, they said to Samson's wife, entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us? And hear this. And Samson's wife wept over him. They come up to his wife and say, if you don't tell us what the riddle is, if you don't entice your husband, we are going to kill you and your father and your household. His wife goes over to Samson and says, you don't even love me. You don't even love me. Just tell me what the riddle is. And of course he gives in because he loves her. She comes up to them and says, this is what the riddle answer is. And then after the guests figure it out because of his wife, they come up to Samson, tell him the riddle, tell him the answer, and he says this is insane. This is ridiculous. Hear this. And the men of the city said to him on the seventh day before the sun went down, what is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, this is Samson saying to the guests, if you have not plowed with my heifer, you have not found out the riddle. What did Samson just say? If you did not go to my heifer, what does heifer mean? It means a cow. He literally called his wife a cow. And because they figure it out, guess what Samson does? He goes near a town. With his strength, he strikes down this building that strikes 30 people dead. And he takes their garments, he goes to them, throws them, and leaves. And then his wife is given to his best man. So I just mashed these 2 points together. So we see enticed emotion. Basically, when his wife comes up to him and says, well, you don't even love me, she gives the guys the answer. The guys say, this is the answer. And Samson says, you just messed with my cow. Why did Samson call her a cow? Let me give you guys some advice. Stand up for your partner. These guys were threatening his wife. Stand up for your girlfriend. Stand up for your fiance. Or if you're not in an intimate relationship, stand up for others. But as we're in this time of dating, as we're talking about dating, men, stand up for your girl. Stand up for your woman. Stand up for your lady. If you want a relationship so bad, but you care about the stuff, do you even want a relationship? Because a relationship is not about the stuff. It's not about what you get. It's about who you love. Unless they know you're joking, but most often, please don't do this. Please don't call your spouse. Please don't call your girlfriend names. Why? Because it breaks trust. But above all this, God should be the center of your relationship. Above the stuff, above how you treat your girl, above even defending your woman, make sure God is at the center of your relationship. And I promise you, if God is in the center of your relationship, all of those things will come together. And that will bring you two together. That will bring a man and woman together if they both know that God is in the center. And we see that anger never wins. When he throws those new garments to the people and walks up to his house, shuts the door, and never sees anybody, and then his wife is given to someone else. Anger doesn't win, y'all. There's a specific type of anger that's called holy anger. And really, Jesus is the only one that perfected this. The people in the temple were using the temple as a business. Jesus would flip over those tables because he was not doing that out of selfishness. He didn't just throw over the tables because he wanted to. He did it because he proclaimed a statement saying, this is my Father's house. This temple that you guys are supposed to worship God, you have made it into a marketplace. You made it where people can sell and buy things. That's why he threw over the tables, and that's why he drove out everybody, because this is supposed to be a place of worship, not a place of business. And that's the way that Jesus went about anger. It was holy anger because he was mad at sin. He was angry at sin. Because he was angry at sin, at what was taking place in the marketplace, he didn't sin. Men, we all know this, right? Anger doesn't win. Because if you let your anger control you and you don't control it, it can destroy everything and everyone you love. I pray that the Lord would help us to fight anger. The Lord gets angry. The Lord gets disappointed. The Lord gets furious. All the wrath of God was upon his son. That should have been upon us. God gets angry. So it's natural for us to get angry. For Christians, we should learn to control our anger, and I'm still working on it to this day. So after all of that, although Samson wasn't the best example, we can see the warnings, we can see the rebukes, we can see the things that we need to avoid. And as we close off this special Valentine's Day video, let me close out with the main point. Dating shouldn't be about the person we like or want to impress. It's about how we act towards them. Men, be yourself. Ladies, be yourself. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing a man and a woman come together for the purpose of a genuine, true relationship. My name is Clark from TheGospelHouse Ministries. I'm so thrilled to bring this message to you guys. Believe it or not, this message has actually been on my notes for several years now. So I'm really excited that you guys got to hear this for the very first time. Guys, happy Valentine's Day to all the couples and to everybody that is celebrating Valentine's Day. Again, my name is Clark from TheGospelHouse Ministries, and I'll see you guys in the next video. God bless and love to all y'all.